Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering and presented by Hercules Tire. I'm Hannah Newhouse, joined each and every week by my co-host of Kyle Rickey, where we cover NASCAR's regional, international, and local touring divisions. Kyle, over the weekend, we've had some weekends over the summer where we've really strained for some racing action. Had rain out. This past weekend was not one of them. It seemed like everyone was racing literally from coast to coast, including the ARCA West Series at the Bull Ring. You had action in your backyard at Stafford, crowning a modified champion. I was in Martinsville, Pinty's. I mean, we had it all this weekend on tap. Yeah,
it was a great weekend. Like you mentioned, coast to coast and even north of the border, wrapping up the championship up there. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, like you mentioned, just up the road from my place here in Connecticut, the Stafford Motor Speedway. And for the first time in forever, Justin Bonsignore picked up the checkered flag, ending his winless streak at Stafford, now 1 for 41. What was a really cool race, I thought. It went caution-free for the first 130 laps, and we had some pretty cool pit reporters down in the infield that got the stories. And Justin Bonsignore's crew chief, Ryan Stone, pretty much said, we can't make it the distance. No one was planning for this race to go 150 laps. So if this stays green, we might have a problem here in our bid for not only the Stafford win, but also this year's championship, because Patrick Emmerling was running fairly decent as well. But then the caution came out. Bobby Santos had some issues on the backstretch, and that storyline was lost. But really good race, and happy for Justin to pick up not only the Stafford win, but also his third title on the tour.
Man, to be a crew chief and watch those laps be ticking off and knowing a championship's on the line, you're not going to make it on fuel. I mean, there's a reason that Ryan Stone is a 3-time championship crew chief, but to watch that possibility, go out the window had to have been a little gut wrenching at the time. But like you said, Emmerling went into it with a chance at the championship, came home on the podium, not enough to get it done. And we'll talk to Justin here shortly about this championship, but I think the storyline, while yes, is the championship, he even said it himself in a post-race interview. He was more excited about finally getting a win at Stafford and beating Doug Coby in the process than the championship itself.
I think the only thing that would have made it sweeter is if Ryan Preece could have been there. But unfortunately, Ryan was at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway prepping for the Cup race. But Doug first wanted to congratulate Justin in victory lane. In fact, gave him a little tap on the racetrack on the backstretch on the cool down lap. I think it was Ryan Preece that tweeted post-race, it was a GIF of somebody taking the garbage out, and in that garbage bag was all the things that he was going to say if the winless streak continued.
Did you call it a GIF, like peanut butter?
Or a GIF, whatever. I'm old. Whatever. Okay, Doug Coby made fun of me as well for saying the wrong one.
You're learning slowly but surely.
I am.
Anyways, Doug Coby again did come home second after that late race restart. Fortunately, Bonsignore able to obviously get past him. Emmerling came home on the podium when the points finally shook out at the end of the night. Emmerling 22 behind Bonsignore, so obviously pretty good gap when it was all said and done. Ron Silk third. Kyle Bonsignore, 81 points behind. And of course, Doug Coby missed that race earlier in the year for the SRX race and still managed a top 5 in the points. So we'll talk to Justin here in just a little bit about that win as well as his third championship. But first, we have your iRacing update presented by Logitech G. It all comes down to the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Championship. It's almost here. The final race of the playoffs will be on Tuesday, October 12th at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. You can catch all the action and the iRacing countdown to green at enascar.com/live at 8:30 p.m. And the race will start at 9 p.m. on Tuesday, October 12th. Go to iRacing.com for all of the latest news, the featured videos, and more information on the world of iRacing. This iRacing update is brought to you by Logitech G. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk to Justin Bonsignore about his third modified championship.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights. Whelen also produces white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and high-powered warning systems for automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Every part of every Whelen product is proudly designed and manufactured in America and is tested on-site to meet the toughest industry certifications. Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, trusted to perform since 1952.
Gamers, start your engines. Meet the next generation of racing wheels. The award-winning Logitech G design is re-engineered to dial into your game physics, delivering unprecedented realism. Feel every shift, drift, and hairpin turn like never before. Our latest innovation in force feedback technology connects directly to endgame simulation engines and physics to produce higher fidelity, real-time responses. Through design, engineering, and the love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Go to logitechg.com.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. We talked about it. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour crowned their champion this past weekend. That driver for his second consecutive and third overall championship. That is Justin Bonsignore. He joins us now on the guest line. First off, Justin, thanks for taking some time to join us here on Coast to Coast.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always meaning we're doing something good. So I like coming on.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before you joined us. Of course, that championship, we'll get into the whole works of that a little bit later, but I heard it in a post-race interview. I know it was on your mind going into the race. 1 for 41 now is now the record at Stafford Motor Speedway to end the year and the championship finally breaking through on Stafford. Did that make it all that much sweeter?
Yeah, it's still surreal that we finally were able to get the win at Stafford, and we had such a really good car and kind of dominated the second half of that race. So it's not like we lucked into it or something crazy happened where we snuck one away and I would have been picked on in that front. So yeah, it's nice to get that off our back and to do it on championship night. It's a little weird. It feels really cool. But at the same time, I've been saying it's almost like when your birthday and Christmas are on the same day and you get like two, you only get one gift, so only one night to enjoy it. But from what I remember of the night, I had a really good time. It was a lot of fun in the parking lot at the camper lot at Stafford. And yeah, I'm just glad it's behind us now and we can just focus on getting the next one the next time we go to Stafford.
Let's talk about the race for a bit. I thought it was a pretty good race. Anthony Nocella led early. The race went green forever until about 20 laps to go. But I felt like that lead group was fairly tight, especially in the second half of that 130-lap green flag run. There were issues, apparently, with your pit, as we heard from our pit reporter about maybe a fuel issue. I know Ryan was nervous. If this race goes caution-free, we might be in trouble. I mean, how close was it, or could it have been if there was not a caution with 20 to go?
Yeah, I mean, we're always really nervous when we go to Thompson and Stafford and all these half-mile, 5/8 mile tracks. We are cutting it close. Since we went to the spec engine years ago, that's when it really started to become an issue. There has been a few guys that ran out years ago, but more and more, the more years we go past that, it seems like maybe there was another issue that night. We were really conscious about saving fuel. We packed the cell. It takes us 5 to 10 minutes to pack the fuel cell before the races just to get every drop we can in there. And Ryan was concerned. I did kind of slow my pace down right on a lap 100 or so. I was kind of running, maybe not as deep into the corner, trying not to use as much brake, just let the car roll and roll back to the throttle. Once I had a pretty good lead, I was able to do that. And then, I asked, I think just before that caution had come out, I did come over the radio and I asked, I said, if they catch me, do we go into save mode for championship or do we race? And Ryan at that point was like, just go out and try and win the race. So, then from there, all the cautions come out and you're not going to be saving at that point late in the race. So, it wasn't as close, I guess, after we checked it as we thought. So that's good for the notebook for the next time we go back. Maybe we don't have to be as concerned, but I guess once the pace slows down so much on old tires, 100 plus laps into a run, you're not using as much fuel anyways. So that's probably why we had more than we expected.
You mentioned those cautions that came out, a late race one where the man in the rearview mirror, that was Doug Coby, of course, who the rivalry and the friendship walk hand in hand. To when that final caution came out and you're on the cusp of finally breaking through at Stafford and Doug Coby's the guy that lines up next to you. I mean, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, so I knew he had a good car and he was kind of stuck there in third. And then we had, the first caution comes out, we had a killer pit stop, get out front, look in the mirror when we double up and he's third behind us. I'm like, you don't know how good your car is going to fire off. It's a short run. Obviously we threw a ton of stagger at it, tried freeing the car up and you're in qualifying mode for 20 laps. And we were able to drive away from him by a handful of car lengths and I felt pretty comfortable. Then, of course, the green, white checkered, and he's next to me. And then I look in the mirror, and Patrick, who we're battling for the championship, is right behind me. And I 10 laps earlier was almost lapping him. It's like, man, these are not the two guys you want on your bumper. But Doug tried jumping that start pretty good. I don't know if he tried giving it back or what, or if my car just got really good drive off of 2 and got into 3 and was able to just get by him and clear him, and kind of had a good car that last lap to put enough distance on him to where he couldn't drive into the back of me. Because all week long he was telling me, you're going for points. I'm going to just drive through the back of you if you're leading and I'm second coming to the checker. Because he did not want me to beat him at Stafford, similar to how I did not want him to get his first by beating me at Riverhead. So big enough gap into 3 where he couldn't do nothing. And, it was cool to celebrate. He was the first guy over to congratulate us. So as much as he talks crap, it's all in good fun.
You got your first win at Stafford. He got his first win this year at Riverhead. So it's kind of like it was almost meant to be. Outside of a 24th place finish for you at Richmond, not a bad year. I think you averaged just about a 5.1. How would you kind of characterize this season and this third championship for you and your 51 team?
Yeah, it was totally different than the years past. The first year, we didn't really know what to expect when Ryan came on board. Then we go out and win eight out of the 16 and just had an unbelievable season. When we didn't win, we finished top 3 or top 4, led a ton of laps. 2020 was different in itself just because of the pandemic. And we go out and have like a 3-point-something average finish and run in the top 5 for the 9 races we had. This year we come out just as confident that we could do it again. But just we had the raw speed every week and we got a lot of poles, but we just weren't putting the whole races together to be in position to win the race. We were second, third. I think half the races were first, second, or third. But we just, for whatever circumstances, didn't get out of the pits first, had a little slow pit stop, got a bad lane on a restart. We didn't always have the racing luck that you need that in 2018 just basically was handed to us. And it makes it a little frustrating. You're like, wow, we only had 1 win until this point and our cars are that good, but you just have to remain focused and stay confident that, when you're running top 3 each and every week, you're going to at some point knock the door down and win another race. So, considering how the year went and only having a 1 win, I'll take the Stafford win as it kind of counts as maybe a few extra in my eyes. So I'll count it as 5 wins as far as I'm concerned.
Taking a look at the whole modified field when it came down to the championship, Kyle and I talked about it throughout the year. This was probably one of the first times in the last couple of years that we've seen a championship potentially go down to the last weekend. You clinched pretty early on in one of your championships, or it looked like usually someone was starting to walk away with it with a few races to go. What kind of set this year apart in comparison to previous years with allowing different winners, seeing that we saw, Emerling get win, we saw Eric Goodale get wins that we usually maybe don't see? What set this season apart?
That's a good question. I mean, I just think, honestly, the competition's so close. It might not always show that because it does seem like the same guys are repetitive winners, but, we're within a couple tenths, so 2 to 3 tenths this whole field is. Like at Martinsville, Eric just made the right adjustments at the last pit stop and had a really good car and made it, the best car. And we went maybe a little bit the other way. And same thing happened at a lot of races. Ryan came in, Priest won a handful of races. He was probably the best car, I think, on the races that he was there. So Patrick was, made a huge leap in their program this year and was competitive and running top 3 every week. Hirschman, when he shows up, there's just so many guys when they show up, if they don't run the whole schedule, can always win. But it just, it's deceiving because, like you said, the same 4 or 5 guys seem to always win the races, but there's 10 or 12 that if circumstances play out in the right way, they can win races. So that's what makes the tour fun and makes it so competitive. I mean, everybody has the same basic race cars nowadays. We all run spec engines. We run the same tire, same fuel. The box that we race in is really small and really tight. And that's what makes for the hard nose and close racing that you see.
Did it feel different that Doug wasn't one of the drivers that you were running for the championship going into the final race? I think he said in post race, it was the first time in I think 10 years that he didn't go into the last race as a title contender, only because he missed that race earlier this year due to SRX.
Yeah, but I quickly reminded him that in 2018 he was like 100 points behind. So, but yeah, he for the last 10 plus years he has been in contention. Whether he won or lost just by a little bit, it is probably different. But at the same time, up until he got crashed at Riverhead last week, he was in the owner's points in contention, and we were genuinely concerned. Like, we don't want him to sneak in here and pull this off and have to share the spotlight with him. So it was definitely different, but it's still the same old deal. We've done this from both sides. We've lost a handful before we ever won our first in close battles, and then we learned how to win one, and then that one was pretty, not to be cocky, but that one was pretty easy points racing wise that year. We had a fairly good gap, and 2020 was we had a decent gap, and then this year we were close all year long. Patrick had one hiccup, and that kind of gave us that big buffer, and then we both had hiccups at Richmond, and we were just kind of at a point where we had enough to breathe, but still was a little nervous if we had another mechanical failure or get caught up in a crash that could all be wiped away quickly. So I appreciate each different way that you can compete and contend for these championships, because now next year, if it's 10, 12 points again, you're going to be confident in yourself knowing, hey, we did this once. Don't stress on it all week. Don't pull your hair out for no reason. You're going to just do what you can and see what happens.
That being said, looking forward, what's next on your goal of things? You've got 3 championships. You finally checked Old Stafford Motor Speedway off the list. What's next on your, personal goals as a driver?
Well, I mean, as much as we've accomplished and the success that we've had these last few years, Doug still has twice as many championships as us. So the ultimate goal will be to each year go and try and, our next goal is immediately to try and get the 4th. And then keep going from there. But obviously it's not that simple. All we can ask for each and every year is just a shot to contend for the championship. And if, when you get to the last race, you have it, you just, try and make the most of it. So, I'm only 33. It's old in some ways, but I feel like I still have a decent amount of years. I got a really good team behind me that, every text message so far this week from them is they want to go out and do this again next year and the year after that. And if we could keep this group together for a while, I think the sky's the limit. So, we have some guys, I think, within reach on the win list. If we could maybe get to second all time at some point before it's all said and done, would be really cool. I'd like to think Mike's record is probably way out of reach. If you won 8 every year, it'd be easy, but this year you only get 2. So the immediate goal will be to try and contend for the 4th, and then we'll just take it year by year from there if we're fortunate enough to ever get the 4th.
While we got you, let's look ahead to 2022, and we anticipate the season. It's been announced, but the next new track on the series is going to be New Smyrna Speedway. Your thoughts about going down there and what appears to be opening up the schedule down in Florida next spring?
Yeah, that was a huge announcement. We got that news while in Richmond that morning, and we were just totally shocked by that. It's been rumors for years, and we've always wanted it. I mean, I've run Smyrna. I've done Speed Weeks a handful of times. I haven't done it recently, but we're excited. The Daytona Speed Weeks leading up to the 500 is the pinnacle of racing. Everybody goes to Florida during that time, whether it's asphalt, dirt, the National Series, like that is where you want to be. And for us to kick our season off there should be really good. I'm hoping that we can pull in some of the guys that run the open weeks, open events there for that week. I think it sounds like we're going to stay and use that week to do some testing, because there's been some rule changes in our series that we kind of held back on trying new ideas this year because we were in the points. We didn't want to mess ourselves up. So I think we're going to spend that week trying some things. And, if you go down there and the weather's 80 degrees each and every day and you're out of the snow, what else could you ask for? So, just hope for the best on all those fronts. And I think it should be a really good event. Not sure if the ARCA is going to be there as well. So it could be, really good Speed Weeks. It should work out really well for New Smyrna in general. And, they've always been huge supporters of modified racing, and for them to finally take the leap to have the tour come in and pay the purse that they have to pay is really cool. And, we're hoping to put on a good event for them. And, it'll be here before you know it. We have some other racing to do still, but February is going to come quick, and it's a quick turnaround compared to, late March or early April for our normal winters.
I'll trade you. I'll take the snow, and you can come have the North Carolina winters.
No, thanks. I'll trade you for sure. I hate it.
Awesome. Well, Justin, of course, congratulations once again on the championship. We're looking forward to watching you next year, try and chase yet another championship, and of course the racing that you have planned over the off season.
No, I thank you guys for having me on. I'll hopefully see you all soon, and have a good holiday season if I don't talk to you.
Awesome, guys. Again, that is Justin Bonsignore, your 2021 NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk to the winner of the Martinsville Valley Star Credit Union 300, Landon Pembelton, 16 years old, breaking the record book. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll join back on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights. Whelen also produces white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and high-powered warning systems for automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Every part of every Whelen product is proudly designed and manufactured in America and is tested on-site to meet the toughest industry certifications. Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, trusted to perform since 1952.
Sir, are you aware you were going 40 miles an hour? This is a residential area.
Sure, but I'm on my lawnmower? Wait, am I getting a ticket?
No, I've just never seen anyone top 9 miles an hour on one of those bad boys. And mow their entire lawn in 30 seconds? What got into you?
Well, I did fuel up at Sunoco this morning.
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
Get back to NASCAR roots by driving headfirst into the new home of grassroots racing. Flow Racing keeps the original NASCAR tradition of dirt track racing roaring with more than 1,300 live and on-demand oval events from across the U.S. Learn how the next generation of NASCAR drivers is prospected in sprint car racing. Subscribe today by going to flowracing.com/GoMRN. That's FLOracing.com/GoMRN.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. We just got done talking to your NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion, Justin Bonsignore, and we're now joined as one of the sponsored Whelen driver spotlights. Landon Pembelton collected the biggest late model stock win probably of his career. And of course, for any driver trying to compete, that was the one at Martinsville, the Valley Star Credit Union 300. First off, Landon, thanks for joining us and congratulations on your win this past weekend.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. It was truly an honor to go out there and win the biggest late model stock car race of the year. And since COVID shut the other one down in 2020, it's a big deal having 82 or 3 cars there, and being the number one guy to come out on top was pretty cool.
I got the opportunity to be there on pit road, of course, covering it for MRN and Track Pass. To see your team, your family hop the wall. I know your dad was a ball of emotions, to say the least. Has it finally set in for you, though? Because when we talked right after the race in Victory Lane, you could almost tell it hadn't quite set in the caliber of what had just happened. Has it set in yet?
It's starting to sink in a little bit. I've still yet to understand what has truly happened. To know that I came home with a clock and $32,000 is unbelievable. I'm still in disbelief. I still don't believe it, but I'm starting to believe it more and more every day. I come home to see the clock sitting there in the living room. So it's truly just unbelievable.
A pretty cool trophy that obviously everyone at all levels of racing eventually sought after. Before we get into the end of the race, though, and of course this one as a whole, this is a tough race to get in. You'd mentioned it, over 80 cars on the entry list. No last chance qualifier this year, 6 tires only. So that became a whole strategy within itself. Obviously we're able to race in through the heat race. When you finally locked yourself into the feature event, was a win on your radar, or what were your guys' goals going into the race?
So our goals were to potentially qualify in the top 20, but if we didn't, I would have been perfectly fine. To make the race was our main goal. To go out there and be leading by lap 150 was awesome. I mean, just knowing that we had that good, I knew I had a really good car going into this week. My crew chief, Forrest Reynolds, he had me hooked up. I just had to get some help getting around there, and Philip Morris was there to help me. And he just helped me out a ton.
And Philip Morris, definitely a good guy to lean on, somewhat known as the king of late model stock racing. Cool to have him as part of the field. You mentioned Forrest Reynolds, obviously your crew chief with Reynolds Racing Chassis. He's seen success with a lot of drivers, including Ryan Repko, Justin Carroll. And I'll be honest with you, I watched your guys' strategy. So those that didn't actually watch the race, you guys were allotted a break at lap 75 and again 150. You only had 2 tires, 2 right sides to take. 80% of the field was going to hold those tires till the lap 150 break. Yourself, Mike Looney, Justin Borst, and I believe a couple others were really the only ones that came down and took those 2 right side tires. When I saw that, I was like, these guys are crazy. This is not going to work out for them. Clearly it did. Was that an audible call, or was that something that Forrest kind of had up his sleeve and knew was going to work?
Well, he kind of had it up his sleeve. He said at halfway, he said he would look at the tires, and if they were wore out, he would knew that he either made the wrong or right decision. And he said when he pulled tires off, they looked pretty much brand new. And so he said track positions are going to help us out a lot. And we were able to get out to about a 2.5-second lead, which is pretty impressive, especially with all those drivers there, Cars Tour drivers, national champion, Payne Sellers. Just knowing that we could get to that big of a lead against those guys is very impressive.
Yeah, it definitely was fun to watch. We're going to go to those last couple cautions, of course, in the lead, and you had to work for it at the tail end there. A caution came out with about 30 laps to go, and then it came out again. What was going through your mind when it looked like you were going to be clean and green to the finish to see those 2 cautions come out?
So I was just hoping for maybe one caution. We were a little scared on the fuel mileage there. The cautions really did help us because they started counting caution laps, and just to be able to save fuel was a big help. But the last restart, I was a little nervous. He got on out there about a half a car length in front of me, and I was just able to stay to his inside. And I got a little loose getting into one and had to lean on him a little bit. But and we ended up coming out with the lead and just running away with it. So it was just we just had to get out front.
And you guys really the last couple of weeks kind of went from the bottom of the barrel to the top of it all. Of course, having a very wrecked race car after Dominion to winning the biggest race. What does this kind of do after Dominion? What does this win do for your team, for yourself as a driver, and boosting your confidence and your team's morale?
This is a major confidence booster for my team specifically and Sellers Racing as a whole. Sellers Racing pretty much swept the whole weekend. We won a heat race, we won the pole, fastest in practice, and we won the main event. It's honestly very, very impressive on Sellers Racing's part to be able to pretty much say that we did everything in Martinsville this year.
Pretty impressive to say the least. Most young drivers, yourself only being 16, you kind of started with this checklist. It's get a win on a local division. Okay, go for a track championship, maybe get a touring win. And then you start doing these big circle wins like your Martinsvilles and stuff like that. You got your first late model stock win ever earlier this year, and then jumped and won the biggest late model race, obviously 10th in national points, the highest scoring rookie. What are your goals now going into next year? Are you going to try and chase something touring related, or are you still just taking it kind of one race at a time?
So we're going to just try and take it one race at a time. If we can win a track championship next year, and if we maybe have a shot at a national championship up in the points, it would be in the talks to try and go for it. But definitely just trying to win a track championship would be our main objective next year.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it again. Congratulations, Landon. It was exciting to watch from pit road. I know a lot of people, a feel-good story that we all like to watch, and you've got a lot of eyes watching you moving forward.
So I've got a couple people I've got to thank. I got to thank my mom, dad, and sister. They support me week in, week out. They're always at my races. Pembelton Forest Products. That's my whole family, of course. GXS Wraps and RPM Group, Stephen Dunn. They do a lot for me. He's supported me from day one. He's been wrapping my cars ever since I first started. Brian Tanner, he's helped me a lot. I've ran all of his motors since I first started. Solid Rock Carriers, Kirk Ipock, he came on for the July 4th race and the Martinsville race, and we had a lot of great showings with him this year, and I can't thank him enough. There's a couple more. Ream, I've got to thank him too. Anderson Turf Management, Williams Logging. There's a couple more. I just can't name them off the top of my head. I'm just so overwhelmed with all the people supporting me and helping me out. It's truly amazing.
Well, that's definitely one way to burst onto the scene in late model stock racing. Of course, everyone can follow you. I know you guys are active on social media as far as your Facebook page, so I know they can follow you there. Lots going on. Again, Landon, congratulations, and I'm looking forward to watching your career as it continues.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Again, guys, that is your Whelen driver spotlight of the week. This past weekend's Valley Star Credit Union 300 winner at Martinsville, Landon Pembelton. We're going to take a quick break. Then we'll recap the past weekend and tell you what to look forward to this up and coming weekend.
Gamers, start your engines. Meet the next generation of racing wheels. The award-winning Logitech G design is re-engineered to dial into your game physics, delivering unprecedented realism. Feel every shift, drift, and hairpin turn like never before. Our latest innovation in force feedback technology connects directly to endgame simulation engines and physics to produce higher fidelity, real-time responses. Through design, engineering, and the love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Go to logitechg.com.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights. Whelen also produces white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and high-powered warning systems for automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Every part of every Whelen product is proudly designed and manufactured in America and is tested on-site to meet the toughest industry certifications. Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, trusted to perform since 1952.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there no matter where the road takes you. Go to HerculesTires.com. There you can find the nearest authorized Hercules retail location to you. Plus, you can use the tire tracker to find out which Hercules tire fits your vehicle the best. That's HerculesTires.com. Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network. We talked about it at the beginning of the show, a lot of racing action all across the country, including the ARCA West, which kicked off a weekend of racing out in Las Vegas. They started things off at the Bull Ring with the Star Nursery 150. Taylor Gray, we talked to him a couple weeks ago, went back-to-back in the West Series, collecting the win over Jake Drew, Trevor Huddleston, Joey East, and Kyle Keller. Your top five. Shout out to Christian Rose, top 10 in his ARCA West debut as well. I know he's trying to put together some more races there. With the points, Jesse Love still leads over Jake Drew, only 7 points back. Cole Moore, 14 back, and Joey East and Paul Petroncelli, 15 points back. Kyle, their season's quickly winding down, 2 races left, and anyone in the top to 5 realistically can win the championship, if car counts align.
And they have been. There were 23 cars that started the last race at the Las Vegas Bull Ring on Thursday night. So they're getting the car count, 20 plus cars every week. I talked to Chris Wright, the series director, and he's very excited about the direction that the West is heading in, not only for the last 2 races of this season, but also looking ahead to 2022. They next race at the All-American Speedway on October 9th. And then about a month later, they wrap it up November 6th, Phoenix Raceway. And MRN will have live coverage of that as they'll be a part of the championship weekend out there in the Phoenix Desert.
Yeah, crazy to think the season's, of course, wrapping up. We just talked to Justin Bonsignore, the modified champion, but another champion that was crowned over the weekend was the Pinty Series champion. And if you did not follow those races, whether it was on Track Pass, whether you were there to watch them, or on social media, oh my goodness. You want to talk about a drama-filled weekend. Every single time those guys hit the racetrack, it was intense. Triple header at Delaware Speedway started on Friday. They had the Canadian Tire 125 on Friday, and then a double header on Sunday, 125 laps for all 3 of those. Now, mind you, going into the weekend, Alex Tagliani was your points leader. LP Dumoulin was in second.
Yep.
And what a weekend Tagliani had. I don't think he finished inside the top 10 once. His 14th, 18th, and 17th were his consecutive finishes throughout the weekend. DJ Kennington won the race on Friday over Trayton Lapsevich, Andrew Ranger. Drama came from that race, Kyle. And then we let him cool down on Saturday and let him at it again for a doubleheader to crown a champion on Sunday.
And keep in mind, Delaware Speedway, a very tight, short track oval, one of the tightest that the series runs on. So there was a lot of contact. And again, a decent field of cars for having not one, not two, but three races to end their season. DJ Kennington won race number 2, the Quick Wick 125 over Brandon Watson and Andrew Ranger, the top three. And in race number 3, the Pinty's Fall Brawl, Andrew Ranger picked up the race win over Kevin Lacroix, Pete Shepard, Brandon Watson, and DJ Kennington. A fairly consistent weekend. We didn't mention LP Dumoulin name in the top 5 in the final race, but the first 2 races, he gained enough ground on tags to win the championship by a whopping 8 points over Andrew Ranger. So a very tight championship battle, an eventful weekend to end the season for the NASCAR Pinty Series at the Delaware Speedway.
Yeah, your top 5 ended up being, like you said, LP Dumoulin, Andrew Ranger only 8 back. DJ Kennington with those double wins made some moves in the points as well. He came home 11 points back in the third. Tagliani, man, not the weekend he wanted. Of course, went into it with the points lead, came home 4th in the point standing, 18th point out, and Treaton Lapsevich, the rookie, 23 out. He'll be definitely a contender next year, obviously. The younger brother of Caden Lapsevich, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yep, who is a past champion as well in the Pinty Series. So the Lapsevich family, obviously, hoping to bring home a title next year. Martinsville, we talked about it and just talked to Landon Pembelton. A great race that it was. You know, we talked about it last week. Josh Berry was in Las Vegas covering for Michael Annett, captured that win in the Xfinity Series. Everyone took a sigh of relief when they heard that he was not going to be going to Martinsville. And it was a weekend of the underdogs, I want to say, at Martinsville Speedway, because, you know, you had Philip Morris, who returned after a 2-year hiatus. It was good to see him at the racetrack. But your top 5 ended up being Pembleton, Mike Looney, Lane Riggs, Sammy Smith, and Jared Fryer. Daniel Silvestri qualified on the pole, had never been at Martinsville Speedway prior to hitting the racetrack on Friday. The teams were told that they only got 6 tires for the weekend. Usually this is a 16 tire race or event. Yep. They got 6 tires when they found out on Friday when they showed up at the property. Awesome for that small team, you know, 16 years old, and his second win, Kyle. Second win in his career comes at Martinsville.
And very well spoken in Victory Lane. I was able to watch your interview with him on NBC's Track Pass and on the Motor Racing Network. Our audio was tied in. So great coverage there. And it seems like a really talented young driver that we're going to be talking about for years to come. Also, a quick shout out to Bobby McCarty, who finished 6th in the race and was also crowned the Virginia Triple Crown champion. I know there was a lot of math going on post-race to figure out who had the best average finish, and it was Bobby picking up the Virginia Triple Crown championship there at the end of the race at Martinsville on Saturday night.
Of course, picking up that championship over your 2021 Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. I got it now. See, it only took me the whole year.
A whole year.
Champion Peyton Sellers, who was part of that race as well. So a lot of races within races, a talented field. Of course, I'm glad to have that event back on the schedule after missing it last year. This upcoming weekend, though, a little bit more lax. Kyle, you and I are going to be headed to Talladega to do some more NASCAR playoff racing, but the ARCA Menard Series, they're headed to Salem for the Sioux Chief Power Pex 200.
Yeah, on 26 points between Ty Gibbs and Corey Heim. It's been pretty much those two drivers since the drop of the green flag at Daytona in February, running for the championship, and they have 2 races left to settle it. Salem this weekend, and then October 23rd at the Kansas Speedway. So things are winding down. We just crowned a few more champions this past weekend, and just less than a handful to go now, and we'll be done for the 2021 short track season here on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
Yeah, wild to think about that. We'll have all of the coverage from the ARCA Menard Series race. We'll cover it next week here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. I'm Hannah Newhouse for Kyle Rickey. Want to send a big thank you and congratulations to both Landon Pembelton and Justin Bonsignore on their wins and championships over the past weekend. For producers Craig Moore, we'll see you next week here on NASCAR Coast to Coast on the Motor Racing Network.